Rules for first aid treatment. Starting the day, everyone hopes that it will go well. But there are situations when you or your colleagues need help. First aid skills can save your life and the lives of your employees. Success depends on only two factors: a clear knowledge of the sequence of actions in a given situation, and the ability to not get lost at the right time to use this knowledge. To pull yourself together and save the life of the victim. Remember the basic rules for first aid treatment. Rules for first aid treatment. If you see a victim, you must follow the basic rules. Rule number 1. Gauge the situation. Is it dangerous for you and the victim? If possible, eliminate hazards, evaluate the number of victims, and whether it is possible to move them out of the danger zone. Rule number 2. Call an ambulance at number 103 or emergency response service at number 112 and provide the following information: surname and name, age and gender of the victim. Describe the condition and circumstances of the accident, injury, or illness. Name the address, telephone number, and the best route to the location of the victim. Rule number 3. If the situation allows you to provide first aid, determine if there is life-threatening bleeding. Also check if the victim is conscious or not, and if the victim breathes or not. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Step number 1. If you find the victim unconscious and it is not immediately clear whether he is breathing or not, assess whether first aid is safe for you and the victim. Step number 2. Call an ambulance at number 103 or emergency response service at number 112. Step number 3. Start cardiopulmonary resuscitation. After making sure that the victim is unconscious, establish whether he is breathing or not. If breathing, move the victim to the recovery lateral position. To do this, you need to remove glasses from the victim if he wears them. Straighten his legs and kneel next to him. Put that hand which is closer to you at a right angle to the body. Put your farthest hand on the victim's chest so that the back of your hand is pressed to the cheek. Keep it in that position. At this time, take the far leg of the victim above the knee while leaving the foot on the floor, continuing to squeeze the hand near the cheek. Try to put pressure on the foot to turn on its side towards you. Tilt the victim's head back, freeing the breath, and make sure the victim breathes before the ambulance arrives. If the victim is not breathing, proceed with cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Proceed as follows. Apply pressure 30 times on the center of the chest, with your hands with the base of one palm, covering it with the other palm. After 30 applications, make 2 injections into the mouth through a gauze, or if help is provided by paramedics of the units, using a special breathing bag. Continue pressure and insufflation until arrival of 103 or until resumption of spontaneous breathing in the victim. Important: in both cases, the victim is conscious or unconscious. Monitor his condition before arrival of 103. External hemorrhage. Step number 1. If you find the victim with signs of external hemorrhage, assess whether his first aid is safe for you and the victim. Step number 2. Call an ambulance at number 103 or emergency response service at number 112. Step number 3. Proceed to first aid treatment. If bleeding in the head area, apply a pressure bandage from several layers of bandage or improvised means. After this, put the victim in a comfortable position. If bleeding from the nose, squeeze the wings of the nose with your fingers for 10 to 15 seconds and attach a cold object to the nose. Make sure that the victim does not throw his head back, blow his nose, or lie. If bleeding in the neck area, press with your fingers. Apply a bandage of several layers, press with your hand, and hold until the ambulance arrives. If bleeding in the chest, and abdomen, apply a bandage of several layers. It is forbidden to touch or remove foreign objects from the wound. In case of major bleeding of the upper and lower extremities, apply a tourniquet above the site of bleeding from the trouser belt or belt from a bag, tie any piece of fabric, tighten the tourniquet or its substitute until the bleeding stops completely. Under the tourniquet, be sure to place a note with the specified time of applying the tourniquet. Time of the tourniquet applied 30 to 40 minutes in winter, 60 minutes in summer. Apply pressure dressing on the wound. Injuries. Step number 1. If you find the victim with signs of injury, assess whether first aid is safe for you and the victim. Step number 2. Call an ambulance at number 103 or emergency response service at number 112. Step number 3. Proceed to first aid treatment. Find out if the victim is conscious, breathing, or not. If a person does not breathe and is unconscious, follow the algorithm described earlier in the cardiopulmonary resuscitation section. If the victim is conscious and breathing, determine the type of injury. In case of an open injury with bleeding, proceed according to the algorithm described earlier in the section External Hemorrhage. If the injury is closed, apply a cold object to the damaged area through the tissue for 10 to 15 minutes. In case of fractures of the upper and lower limbs, fix the limbs with improvised means or special tires in the initial position. In case of spinal injury, fix the head in line with the body and support the head with your own hands until arrival of 103. In case of injuries of the internal organs, cover the affected areas with a damp cloth, then with polyethylene, and apply a tight bandage from improvised means. Transportation of the victim. Step number 1. While transporting the victim, assess whether first aid is safe for you and the victim. Step number 2. Call an ambulance at number 103 or emergency response service at number 112. If there is no connection to call 103 and 112 and, if possible, deliver the victim to a nearby medical institution, remember the basic rules of transportation. Step number 3. Proceed to first aid treatment. The victim in an unconscious state must be transported in a recovery lateral position. Straighten his legs and kneel next to him. Put that hand which is closer to you at a right angle to the body. Put your farthest hand on the victim's chest so that the back of your hand is pressed to the cheek. Keep it in that position. At this time, take the far leg of the victim above the knee while leaving the foot on the floor, continuing to squeeze the hand near the cheek. Try to put pressure on the foot to turn on its side towards you. Tilt the victim's head back, freeing the breath, and make sure the victim breathes before the ambulance arrives. When transporting with a head or neck injury, put the victim in a car or stretcher on the back, using the tools at hand to create rollers around the head and a soft roller under the neck, or by applying a special fixing collar to the neck. When transporting with a spinal injury, lay the victim on his back on a hard surface, using the improvised means to create rollers under the neck, lower back, and knees. If the stretcher is soft, place the victim on his stomach. When transporting with a chest injury, put the victim in a lateral recovery position on the damaged side. When transporting with an abdominal injury, put the victim in a lateral recovery position. When transporting with a pelvic injury, lay the victim on the back, create a roller under the knees, and slightly spread his legs. Burn, frostbite, fainting, bites, allergy, foreign object. Step number 1. If you find a victim with burns, frostbite, fainting, bites, allergies, a foreign object, assess whether or not it is safe for you and for the victim. Step number 2. Call an ambulance at number 103 or emergency response service at number 112. Step number 3. Proceed to first aid treatment. In case of burns, if there is redness on the skin, swelling, or bubbles for 15 minutes, cool under cold, running, clean water. Then cut off the clothes along the edge of the wound and apply a clean bandage. Important: if the skin is gray or black, water is not needed. It is forbidden to smear the skin with fat or ointments. In case of frostbite, move the victim to a warm place. Carefully remove clothes and shoes. Give warm water and gradually warm the affected area. It is forbidden to rub the skin with snow, grease, or ointment. Give alcohol. In case of faintness, lay the victim on his back, unfasten tight clothing, raise his legs 20 to 30 centimeters, open the window, put a wet towel on his forehead, turn victim's head to one side so that in case of vomiting he can breathe. It is forbidden to stand up abruptly. If you are bitten by an insect or snake, flush the area with an antiseptic and apply a pressure dressing. If edema begins, apply cold. It is forbidden to suck off poison, make incisions, apply a tourniquet, or give your own medications. In case of allergies with sudden itching of the skin, blisters, swelling of the face and neck, call 103. It is forbidden to give your own medicine. In case a foreign object enters the respiratory tract, bend the victim's body forward. Inflict several intensive blows with the palm of the hand between the shoulder blades. Wrap your arms around the waist, press 4 to 5 times in the middle of the abdomen. If the result is negative, call 103. Remember, everyone must have the first aid skills.